So I wasn't quite sure if I was going to even talk about this, but when I sat down and really thought about it, I realized if I was willing to make my Star Wars Battlefront video the way I did, that I definitely owed this topic the same respect. What we're talking about is the Metroid 2 remake that was put up by fans recently, very anticipated, apparently very, very excellent. And we all know that yesterday Nintendo actually ordered a cease and desist of that game and took it down. So this Metroid 2 remake is not the first fan remake of a Metroid game, and it's not even really the first fan remake of Metroid 2. I believe an earlier version of this has existed for a while, which looked really, really cool. And this apparently is the ultimate newer version of Metroid 2 from the same folks. I believe it's ARM2 is the actual pronunciation, or ARM2 of the group of guys, the individuals that actually put this together. It looks great. I mean, it's basically using like a Metroid Zero Mission or a Super Metroid sort of combination visuals. It's kind of like using those engines, and it looks like something between those two games. And it makes Metroid 2 actually kind of more playable. It makes it feel a little bit more modern, apparently. I have not touched either version. I'm very, very curious. I've seen footage of the older version of it, and I always thought it looked fantastic. Metroid 2 Return of Samus, which was released for the Game Boy in like 1990, 91, I think. Probably the least played of all the Metroid games. You know, it's very rare. It came out at a time where just not a lot of Metroid fans would have really gotten their hands on it. It's supposed to be okay. I actually do have it downloaded on my 3DS. They did make it available on the eShop, which is very cool. I've played a couple of hours worth of it since I picked it up, whatever, a year or two ago. And it's cool, man. I like being able to play through a new Metroid game, and Metroid is my favorite series. I am a super duper super fan, you probably know. So I appreciate that Nintendo re-released that game. And then I appreciated that some fans were working to make this game more modern, basically giving it the Zero Mission treatment. And you might not know this, but Zero Mission may stand as my second favorite Metroid game, even over Super Metroid. Just behind Metroid Prime is my favorite. It's really that good. So I appreciated that they were trying to take this rare Metroid game that most fans hadn't played and make it look and play and feel more like Zero Mission. It's very, very cool. However, you know, just yesterday, or just this last week, sorry, this team finally released their new Ultimate version of the Metroid 2 remake, and within days, Nintendo did unfortunately take it down. I think it's very, very sad for those guys. It's something that you always fear with these kinds of things. It does echo what happened with Star Wars Battlefront. Here is the statement that Nintendo released as far as their cease and desist, and this was released, excuse me, this was released to Kotaku. They say, Nintendo's broad library of characters, products, and brands are enjoyed by people around the world, and we appreciate the passion of our fans. But just as Nintendo respects the intellectual property rights of others, we must also protect our own characters, trademarks, and other content. The unapproved use of Nintendo's intellectual property can weaken our ability to protect and preserve it, or to possibly use it for new projects. So this one's a little bit trickier for me than the Battlefront thing, and it's very interesting with Star Wars Battlefront, you know, that Star Wars is like the most important of all the nerd genre properties and entities that exist, which is why I talked about it, and I mentioned that in that video with what EA did taking down the fan project Galaxy in Turmoil. Metroid probably stands as my second favorite of all the nerdy genre type of properties and stories that exist out there because it's my favorite in gaming. Metroid and Samus, they're just my number one thing. And so I have the same level of passion for the series and for the games, and I appreciate that there were fans that they're trying to do something. Nintendo unfortunately took it down the same way EA did not approve the continued use and development of Galaxy in Turmoil, and I think that it sucks for both things. I do have to say that ultimately I don't agree with Nintendo on this, even though I know that just like EA, they have the legal right. So please understand, I acknowledge that on paper, as far as the law goes, that they have the right to do this. And so you can't say Nintendo can't do this, just like I couldn't say EA can't do what they did. There's a little bit of a difference in scenario, though. At least Nintendo here is they're being a little bit more open and outward. They've actually had communication with the guys who actually made this game. They've released a public statement. They've been very vocal and transparent about it, and at least they released a fairly nice statement saying, it's nice that you care. We love the fact that you care about our series enough to do this, but we have our legal reasons and our motivations for wanting to keep this internal and having no one else really deal with our properties unless we tell them to. So I do have to appreciate that they communicated with the people themselves, with the team themselves via a letter, and with the public, you know, through a public statement. EA, the real problem I had with EA, hopefully anyone who watched that gleaned this from my statements, was that EA didn't acknowledge the guys who wanted to meet with them to talk about the game. They didn't talk to them. They didn't release any statements. They basically just were like, no thank you, not going to do it, not going to acknowledge you, not going to talk with you. After Lucasfilm themselves were willing to and did meet in person with the guys behind the game. So that's why EA kind of had this weird, uppity, pompous, nose snubbing sort of attitude towards it after the parent company, Lucasfilm, was okay with it. And the fact that they weren't willing to get involved was just so disgusting to me. Nintendo at least has been transparent, like I said, but I still have to say at the end of the day, I just don't like that Nintendo did this. You know, part of it is, yes, I'm a Metroid super fan and I'd love to be able to play this game. But the other thing is, I don't think that this is smart business. This rests in the realm of like how Nintendo treats YouTube and things like this. And it just shows that, well, while they may have the legal right to do so, and no one can say that on paper what they're doing is wrong, and I recognize and ultimately will respect that, I have to say that I just don't think it's good business. I think it sets a bad precedence when you're attacking fans this way. And Nintendo's done this stuff before. There was like the Super Mario 64 Unreal remake or HD remake that somebody did that apparently was super cool. That was up for about 2 weeks or so a couple of years ago, maybe even a year ago. And Nintendo, of course, took that down. It's like, we know that Nintendo's going to do these things, and, you know, they just don't seem to understand the benefit to something like this. Yes, there can be damage done to people messing with someone's properties in a way that isn't supposed to. I totally get it. But when somebody takes something that's ancient or something that no one would ever really otherwise care about, like a Metroid 2, and they do a remake to show their love and passion for it and get it out to people, to me, moments like that strengthen the brand. And just like a lot of the content put on YouTube and a lot of the things people can do with YouTube strengthens a brand and further improves sales and the goodwill within the gamer and the consumer. And I think that's why, you know, 99% of the gaming developers out there have like totally stopped worrying about copyright claims. I mean, Nintendo, to my knowledge, is the only company that consistently will strike and claim stuff on YouTube, whereas everyone else, it's like no one cares because it is so much better and healthier for the community, and it gets the content out there. It makes it exciting. It keeps people informed because gamers and YouTube content creators are willing to inform people about content more so than sometimes in the companies. It's a benefit, and everyone has realized that but Nintendo. So whereas they have the legal right to claim stuff on YouTube and they have the legal right to go to a fan remake like this and just shut it down completely, I think that they're actually earning bad will from the gamer and the consumer. I think that it just shows that, oh, Nintendo's, their thoughts are outdated, their business models are outdated, they don't understand why this is okay, they don't understand why it just makes people happy, and it makes people want to love something like Metroid, or even this game Metroid 2 that Nintendo has never really given a crap about since making it. It's actually good for them. It shows the love and it strengthens that brand, and it can be good for Nintendo. So I just wish that Nintendo and other companies too, like EA for example, can learn how to leverage moments like this to their advantage. EA could have met with these guys from Frontwire and made Galaxy and Turmoil something that people and fans love, and EA gets to make money from it, and then EA doesn't seem like a bad guy. Nintendo could take something like some of the great content on YouTube and something like a Metroid 2 fan remake, work with it, leverage it to their advantage in marketing, make some money off of it maybe, and then all of a sudden Nintendo comes out as the good guy. But now a lot of people are seeing them as the bad guy because they crapped all over this really awesome fan remake that people wanted that wasn't technically truly doing any damage to Nintendo or the Metroid name. It was only going to do good. And it's just one of those things where, again, please remember, I'm maintaining the legal right that these companies have, like Nintendo, to do this. So you got the legal right, and at the end of the day, you shouldn't be stopped. You know, I mean, they should be able to do what it is they feel they want to do. They're the company. They're the ones running the business, not me. But I do understand the goodwill of gamers, and I understand the perspective of gamers and of Metroid fans as a super fan. So while I'm personally not ragefully angry about this, I just find it disappointing and kind of sad. Sad that a company like Nintendo can't really understand that this is maybe something you don't need to focus your time on, and it could actually be good. Why don't you reach out to people like this when something like this happens and say, hey, we love that you were so into our, 25-year-old game or whatever, and you did an amazing job remaking it. Thank you, and maybe let's work together. What if we wanted to release it on like the eShop, and everyone can make like a little bit of money every time someone downloads it? Because people would download it and people would pay for that. They would absolutely pay to play that. And it just makes me sad that Nintendo doesn't understand that, and instead they make an unfortunate decision, legal as it may be, and it makes him seem kind of like the bad guy to gamers, and that is really unfortunate to me. So tell me what you guys think about this. I think that you can come down on either way, really, and there isn't any right and wrong. Like I said, I think it sucks for Nintendo to be the bad guy, but I think that they have the legal right to do so, so they should be allowed to. Really tough to know what's going on, so I do want to hear your guys' thoughts on the Metroid 2 remake, and just when companies approach stuff like this in this way overall. What do you guys think about this stuff? Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.